Mellor Mill was the largest single cotton factory in the world when it was built. It was styled to look like a fashionable mansion in a country house setting. Samuel Oldknow was born in Anderton, Lancashire in 1756 and established himself as a textiles manufacturer by the age of 25. In 1874 the heart of his business was in Stockport, from where he employed an army of local weavers. He started to buy land in Mellor and Marple 2 years later. Oldknow became the first successful producer in Britain of a fine cotton fabric called muslin. He built a reputation for quality goods and gowns which sold to people of fashion both at home and in Europe. Oldknow's monumental Mellor Mill was constructed between 1790 and 1793 for cotton spinning. With high debts, other expansion plans were affected by national economic slump at this time. Oldknow concentrated upon Mellor and Marple, investing huge sums and changing this area forever. In 1892, the mill dramatically burnt out, its stones and machinery being gradually salvaged and reused. Any walls that survived the fire soon collapsed, and nature reclaimed the site. In the 1950s, any standing remains were demolished in order to make the site safe. Mellor Mill was hidden below the ground for many decades. The mill, wheel pits, tunnels and foundations lay untouched until 2009, when local people began to investigate the site through a series of archaeological digs. Oldknow bought the Bottoms Hall estate in 1788. He changed the course of the River Goyt to divert the water to feed the mill ponds. He built the largest cotton spinning mill of its time. In 1892 the mill was destroyed in a spectacular fire, and in time the site returned to peaceful woodland. Beneath the ground the wheel pits and tunnels lay hidden until archaeologists began to investigate. In 1892, 100 years after it was built, Mellor Mill was destroyed by fire. Clouds of cotton dust and timber floors soaked in oil made textile mills extremely flammable. Mill owners tried to develop ways to prevent fires and to put them out once they had started. Mellor Mill was not built to be fireproof. It had a plentiful supply of firefighting water that came into the mill from the reservoirs through a lead pipe. The mill was also fitted with firefighting equipment. However, on that fateful day in 1892, the fire hydrants could not be used as they were deep in the heart of the fire. This is a report from the Cheshire County News on the 18th of November 1892. Immense tongues of fire were belching from the windows. The building was encircled with a halo of crimson light, but still the fire fiend raged. A message was dispatched to Marple and Compstle Fire Brigade, but they arrived too late to be of any practical service. One by one the floors fell in with a deafening crash, and the machinery clanged together like the roar of artillery. Then the roof collapsed with a thunderous smash, amidst the shrieks of bystanders, for all the village was now awake. This is the headstone of the mill that used to be sited in Memorial Park, Marple. The original water wheel that powered Mellor Mill became known as the Wellington wheel. The massive Wellington water wheel generated the equivalent of 50 horses. It powered the spinning machines and the other machinery in the mill as well. Later, in 1815, following extensive alterations to the mill, 2 further water wheels were added to provide extra power. The Wellington wheel pit has been carefully revealed by volunteers from Mellor Archaeological Trust. Their work was funded by a grant from the Association for Industrial Archaeology. This photo shows the water race to the Wellington wheel. Samuel Oldknow diverted the course of the River Goyt to bring water to the mill. He constructed 3 reservoirs to keep the wheel mills turning. Oldknow needed a constant supply of water to turn the mill's huge water wheels. The giant reservoirs he dug to make his mill ponds are known today as the Roman lakes. The first reservoir was built in 1789 and the other two some years later. The flow of water was controlled by sluice gates. After a severe drought dried up the river, the owners decided to install a steam engine as an additional power source. It is hard to imagine today what working life in Mellor Mill would have been like. The machines made a thunderous noise, almost deafening. It would have been hot and humid. The cotton had to be spun in a hot and humid atmosphere to stop the thread from breaking. The windows were kept tightly shut. It would have been very uncomfortable. There was danger of dust. Little bits of fluff flew from the cotton and filled the air till it looked like a fine white dust cloud. Workers in the carding room often coughed up blood as the fluff got into their lungs. Oldknow paid the workers with paper money that could only be exchanged for goods at his shop. When cash was short, he would pay them in food. He often paid wages less than the cost of rent, food, milk and coal. This photo shows the boiler rooms where the steam engines would have been housed. Water powered Mellor Mill until 1860, when 3 years of drought increased the time it took to fill the mill ponds and so shortened the working day. A Manchester-made Goodfellow engine was installed to help power the spinning machines. The engine sat on the stone blocks while the brick settings carried 2 boilers. A celebration was held at the Navigation Inn in Marple to mark the commissioning of the new steam engines at Mellor Mill. This photo, taken from the end of the mill by the boiler room, shows the extent of the excavations with the mill extending into the distance. It's quite a narrow mill, but you have to remember it was 4 stories high, and the line shafts would have gone from the steam engine right down the mill. A third water wheel was added to Mellor Mill in 1815. Prior to this, the mill was powered by the 2 wheels, the Wellington wheel and a wheel at the southern end of the mill. It was named the Waterloo wheel, and it's over the road, Bottoms Mill Lane, from the mill. And the water had to go under the River Goyt and come out on the other side, lower down towards Marple Bridge. Samuel Oldknow and his half-brother John Clayton lived in properties on opposite banks of the River Goyt. Their fine houses marked the entrance to Mellor Mill's landscape grounds. Mellor Lodge was the larger of the 2 houses here. It was Oldknow's main home following the sale of his house in Stockport. Oldknow lived here until his death in 1828. Only the ruins of its basement level and the nearby coach house survive. Houses for Oldknow's workers were built some distance away, hidden from both the mill and Mellor Lodge. John Clayton, manager of Mellor Mill, lived at Marple Lodge. The house was destroyed by a landslide and nothing remains. Oldknow aspired to be a gentleman farmer. In 1801 he built Garden House at the foot of Goyt Cliff. Its 3-acre grounds were a market garden, supplying freshly grown produce for sale to his workers. Garden House contained rooms for drying and preserving fruits and seeds, and a wool chamber to be used in the sheep shearing season. It was the home to the gardener. Oldknow's obituary said he considered it patriotism to convert 1 blade of grass into 2. He keenly experimented, improving soils and introducing new vegetables. He kept crossbreed cattle and several sheep varieties on this estate, including the Spanish Merinos, famed for their fleece. Oldknow won prizes from the Manchester Agricultural Society in 1808 and 1809. In 1828 he was proudly made president of the Derbyshire Agricultural Society.